The Snake Queen. Long ago, on a hot August day, a young woman from the town of Kaiserslautern in Rhineland-Palatinate walked into the woods toward the shore of Lake Vogelvoge. She had laid her red cloth on the meadow so she could work more freely. With skilled hands she picked healing herbs, which she knew how to use in the town for sickness and wounds. Around her, the grass grew tall and green, and the old trees on the lakeshore mirrored themselves on the water's surface. It was so still that one almost thought the earth was holding its breath. Only the gentle rustling of the leaves accompanied the young woman's work. She did not yet suspect that this day would change her life forever. Suddenly something stirred in the thicket of the forest. A huge figure emerged, so silent and majestic that it seemed to glide across the earth. It was the Snake Queen, who since ancient times had dwelled in the woods by Lake Vogelvoge, and who wore a golden crown upon her head. With calm, sinuous movements, she slid toward the lake. When she reached the shore, she raised her head, carelessly laid the crown on the woman's cloth, and then slipped into the water to bathe, as she often did in this lake. The young woman, who had hidden fearfully behind a bush when the snake appeared, was spellbound by this wondrous sight and held her breath. She scarcely dared to move, yet her eyes followed the crown, which now lay so close before her. A tremor seized the young woman's heart. There lay the crown, radiant and mysterious, on her simple cloth, as if fate itself had placed it into her hands. Fear of the Snake Queen wrestled with the temptation to possess such a jewel. At last courage, or perhaps longing for a better life, prevailed. With a hasty motion she wrapped the cloth around the crown and pressed the bundle tightly to her chest. But scarcely had her fingers touched the golden metal when something astonishing happened. The crown began to change. It grew smaller, lighter, as though it knew to whom it now belonged. It nestled into her hands, as if it had been made especially for her. But the Snake Queen soon noticed the loss. A terrible hissing arose, echoing through the forest, and she shot out of the waters in fury. With uncanny speed, the Snake Queen pursued the narrow path the young woman had taken. She ran as fast as she could, driven by fear and hope alike. Her breath came in gasps, her legs flew over the path, yet again and again she dared to glance back. And each time the Snake Queen was closer, her jaws gaping wide, her sharp teeth flashing like daggers. Already she thought she could feel the monster's hot breath upon her neck. At last, with her final strength, the young woman reached her little hut at the edge of the forest. She flung the door open, rushed inside, and slammed it shut. Her heart pounded, her hands trembled as she stared in terror toward the closed door. But the pursuit did not end. With a thunderous crash, the Snake Queen hurled herself against the door of the hut. The walls shuddered, the wood groaned, and at last the door burst into 1,000 splinters. Yet in her rage, the Snake Queen had overestimated her strength. The impact against the door mortally wounded her. With a final, dreadful cry, she lunged forward, and then life fled her mighty body. She collapsed dead upon the floor. The young woman stared in disbelief at the monster now lying motionless before her. Slowly, the fear faded from her face, and a deep breath of relief escaped her lips. She was saved. In the sudden silence, her gaze turned toward the table. There, resting upon the red cloth, lay the crown. It gleamed in the dusky light of the hut, its radiance so strong it seemed as if a sun had risen in the room. Carefully, the young woman took it into her hands, and again she felt the magic. The crown was no longer a rigid piece of gold, but a living sign of power, changing its form depending on who possessed it. Upon her head it fit as though it had always been meant for her. And so it happened that the young woman changed more and more with each passing day. She wore the crown not only in her hut, but soon also beneath the wide sky. Again and again she was drawn back to Lake Vogelvoge, whose mirrored waters now called to her like an invisible spell. Both by day and by night, she was often seen bathing in the lake, the crown upon her brow, the moonlight making her shine like a queen from another world. At times it seemed as though the water itself smiled at her, as if recognizing in her its new mistress. And the people of Kaiserslautern whispered among themselves that the Snake Queen had not vanished. She lived on, transformed, in the young woman. Thus, the simple woman became the new queen of Lake Vogelvuk, and for a long time people told the extraordinary tale of what once had happened there.